Hey everyone, I'm Brad from Calgary.
This is Sean from Cambridge, Ontario.
I'm Terry from Cornwall, Ontario.
Hey, this is Larry from Pitt Meadows, British Columbia, and you're listening to the Towing Life podcast.
Welcome to the Towing Life podcast, where the ditches are deep, the trucks are loaded, but the drivers are not. I am your host, TowManG, and as usual, I'm joined by my co-host, friend, and former co-worker, a man with very strong opinions, Mr. PlainGuy.
What is going on, G? What is going on?
Oh, well, I've had some complaints about my banner being lopsided, so I decided to move my camera to make the room seem more square. So, you know, the banner's square, like it's level. The camera was not, so I'm going to be playing around with a couple different camera angles in the next couple of weeks and see what works.
In your defense, the gentleman who filed the complaint about your banner being crooked at the time of the complaint might not have been able to see straight.
Maybe.
So,
Maybe.
that being said, it might have all been an optical illusion to him and not actually a crooked banner in your background. So,
well, it depends. If you're driving, you shouldn't be intoxicated to where you can't see straight. So,
well, clearly he was not driving while he's listening to our show, then is he?
Well, he could be. People watch podcasts. They can put their phone on the gauge cluster and watch podcasts. I'm not condoning it, but I'm saying people could.
While
People
intoxicated, no less. All right, let's just add distracted driving on to drinking and driving. I mean, last week's episode condoned smoking as a way to socialize and meet people at events.
Yeah.
You have taken that to a whole new level this week and decided to condone not only drinking and
No,
driving,
I said I do not condone.
but also distracted driving at the same time.
Yeah.
So
You can always get away with putting a good Netflix show on your gauge cluster on your cellular device.
okay,
As long as you got good data.
Moving on. As TowManG said, welcome to another episode of the Towing Life podcast. I realize I have some background sounds I need to turn off. Episode 118, man, the time just keeps flying faster and faster and faster and faster.
Sure does.
You know what is flying? Right off the shelf is our 2024 Recovery of the Month calendars, helped put together by all of our amazing sponsors of the show.
Yep.
If you haven't already, be sure to head over to www.towinglife.ca/recovery. That's towinglife.ca/recovery to get your calendar.
Get it before they sell out.
We are on a limited. I mean, I could always order another batch, but it's going to be close.
Yeah.
It's going to be close. At the time of recording, I just sent out our first batch of them. About 15-20 calendars got sent out today. Some in Canada, some in the US, a little bit of everywhere. We appreciate all of your support on it. We couldn't have done this calendar without the fine folks over at BakPul Hitches, Herb's Towing, Tow Canada. It would be impossible. Tow Soft. So we really appreciate all the help that we've had putting this contest together. The submissions were awesome. There is still a November, which I realized is going to get moved to December. We'll announce on the first week of December the November and December winner. Obviously, they've already been picked. And obviously, we've already got the photos. If not, we couldn't have completed this calendar. So keep an eye out for those coming out. But head over to towinglife.ca/recovery. Get your Recovery of the Month calendar. It's a great way to support the show. We really, other than your cool stories and your comments and your questions, we do not ask you in any way to support the show. Right? Your support is by listening. If you listen every week, you're doing plenty. That's fine.
Or you could like and comment down below on the YouTube side.
You could do that. That is another way to support. And I am perfectly okay with that. But if you would like to bring your support to a whole new level, you can head over to towinglife.ca/recovery and get your Recovery of the Month calendar. Now, we included the shipping, we included the taxes, we made it easy. And for you American listeners, it's in Canadian dollars. Yeah. Which means the cost, I know the dollar exchange. I just visited your wonderful country. You guys are on the up and up on this deal. I tell you now. Yeah. So, that being said, if there's any questions, comments, concerns for the show, how can you get a hold of us? You can visit our website, as we mentioned already, at towinglife.ca. You can also email us at thetowinglife@gmail.com or visit us on Facebook at the Towing Life Podcast, or as G mentioned earlier, comment down below on the YouTube side. Hit that thumbs up, hit the review. I don't know where you go to review our podcast. I don't know how. I know we have reviews. I've seen the reviews. I don't know how to do it. But if you happen to find a way to review our podcast on the audio side, please go ahead. Leave us a star review. I don't care if you leave us a 1 star. If you truly think that's what the show is, and you're at 118 episodes in, go ahead and leave us a 1 star. I'll take it.
Yeah.
Right? How are we going to get better if we don't know?
A review's a review.
A review is no news is bad news. No review is. I'm pretty sure there's bad reviews. I'm pretty sure there's bad reviews. So getting right into it this week. I don't want to waste any time. We're busy people. Our listeners are busy people. They don't want to
I've
hear.
noticed we've got a really bad spelling mistake in our show notes.
Do we? Oh, yes, we do. So, for those of you guys watching over on the Facebook side or over on the YouTube side, and I'll pull up this article. There was a post that the Ontario Provincial Police put out. So, our local police, if you want to go province-wise for GNI, and it is great. It says a spelling mistake of Ontario was the least of the issues located during a 1-day tow truck blitz held by Caledon OPP. Several trucks removed from service and other equipment violations identified and charges laid. For example, and we don't have the photo on here, we cut it out, a hockey skate lace holding together storage cabinets closed. Glad these vehicles are no longer on the road. Man, the OPP have terrible spelling. They have terrible spelling. So the joke is there is this camo truck, and I've seen this truck firsthand. This truck is not his first time being Facebook famous. Misspelled Ontario on the boom of his truck in the stickers. It's spelt Onatrio. Obviously this vehicle got pulled into some sort of inspection station.
Do you think the spelling was intentional? Like an inside joke?
No, I've met the operators. I don't believe it was intentional at all. I mean, I think the spelling correlates directly with how I've seen that truck get operated. So yes, this truck is not the first time it's Facebook famous, which is the ironic part on it. Someone was kind enough in the Facebook comments to write or post up an old article from May 2021 saying 2 lanes blocked, Highway 401 eastbound express at the 400 after a tow truck with its boom lifted struck the overpass. Engineers inspecting the overpass for structural integrity now, waiting for the results before reopening lanes. That is confirmed as the same truck who back in 2021 smoked an overpass on the 401 and now in 2023 is getting towed off after failing its safety inspection on the side of the road. So we happen to lose G on the recording. We will continue on without it. There was a couple awesome comments also put on. I love how you can tell it's hockey skate lace. We're so Canadian, right? So the OPP are referring back to how, or the reader is referring back to how the OPP specifically stated that it was a hockey skate lace. It doesn't get much more Canadian than that. We didn't take our bootlaces off. I seen somebody explaining to somebody in the comments what a hockey skate lace was.
Really?
I'm guessing. I don't know what part you have to be in the States to not know what hockey is or to understand.
I think everyone in the States would know what a skate lace is, because even in the places where it doesn't snow, they still have like hockey teams. Doesn't like Las Vegas have a professional hockey team?
Las Vegas does have a professional hockey team. Arizona has one. Texas has one in Dallas. There's definitely is. Gee, you would expect that. However, when I was down on my recently trip to visit our wonderful friends in the South, I met some fine folks from New York that aren't very far from me. Like, I know they've been up to Canada. They didn't know we had colorful money.
Really?
Not a clue in the world that our money was colored.
I wonder if they knew we had bagged milk.
No, I did explain that to them. Their minds were blown. So, to not think that an American would understand what a hockey skate lace is, I think it's a little naive of you, and I think it's very possible. There was one gentleman that commented on this post, and man, did it take a sideways turn. All these comments from people who are not truckers or towing industry people LOL. Shoelaces get the job done. And you can bet your sweet patootie. I love that he said patootie.
Hmm.
If you're broke down on the side of the 400 series highway, you're not going to care. And obviously, to protect everyone in this, we've gone ahead and removed the names, right? Because I don't like, for two reasons. One, I don't want to get in trouble for calling out this idiot. And two, I don't want more people to call out this idiot because it just becomes abuse.
So in this instance, I just want to clarify this. There isn't snow on the ground and there isn't ice and slush. I've had it, and I'm sure lots of people have had it. In the wintertime, your latches on your toolbox will freeze up and they might just not latch.
Yes.
So you put a bungee cord around it just to make sure it stays closed,
Or a ratchet strap.
or a ratchet strap. And
A
that's a
pinch.
temporary fix until you can get the truck thawed out. You can spray the latch, try to get it moving, try to get it to clasp again. But this is tied in a knot in the decent weather.
Well, it's not even that. This operator could have still had a failure just moments before this inspection.
Yeah.
I am hearing rumors and I don't know the truth to them. I will say them as rumors. That this truck, these two trucks, and we only have the one up in the photo, were actually brought in for the new inspections that are going on for the provincial government for the requirements under the new legislation. Meaning, like, we recently had the police attend our yard and do an inspection on all of our units.
Yep.
I believe in the bigger city areas, they're not going to go to everyone's yard. They're going to have them come to a central point. Now, I've heard that it was at that inspection that happened. I don't know if there's any truth to it. If it is, oh my God, it's worse.
Yeah, because you're probably going to send your best couple of trucks to that inspection.
No, they needed all of them. Our yard, they want all of them. The
Okay.
ones that aren't there, I got to send out to them whenever they get back, whenever we can schedule a time. So, again, I don't know the truth to that. But the fact is that toolbox could have had a failure.
Yeah.
5 minutes before going into this inspection.
So don't send that truck.
Okay. Yes, 100%. Or use a ratchet strap. You were telling me you don't have a ratchet strap on that truck? I don't think the OPP in this scenario are so much giving this guy a hard time that he has a latch that doesn't work on his toolbox. Although, I mean, it should.
Yeah.
Right? You don't want a failure and you don't want stuff flying out the toolbox going down the highway. But it's the fact that you used a hockey skate lace. For the guy saying that all these people weren't in towing, and it's hard for me to have an opinion outside of towing. Let's be honest. I'm a tower and I've been a tower for 10 years. To say if you were on the side of the highway, you wouldn't care about a shoelace, 100% I would. If that truck rolls up with a shoelace tied in a bow, holding its toolbox shut, that guy's not touching my car.
No.
That guy, like, the standard, and if you think that people don't take that into consideration, then you believe that the standard is set so low in this industry that, I mean, who cares about a rust hole through a body? Who cares about missing a fender guard? Who cares about scratches all down the side of it? No, people care about this, right? Because that is truly, I'm not saying you can't have old scratched up iron, but you can still take care of stuff. And a hockey shoelace is not taking care of something.
I don't think the general motoring public really cares what our tow truck really looks like.
I think
Now,
that's
there's an extreme case, right? If the truck's falling apart and they got a ride in it, yeah, I don't think they'd really want to get into it. But if it's beat up, it's got a rust hole through the bumper, like you were saying, it's got scratches down the side, it's a work truck. And I'm assuming the operators probably might explain it to that customer that it's a work truck, right? We had a company not far away from us when we worked together where they had a lot of older rundown equipment. They still went out and got the job done. They towed me once. Granted, they made me sign a damage waiver for my truck that all four tires rolled and it went into neutral, and I was able to even put the e-brake on for them and put it in park and everything like that on the bed. This is before I was a tow operator. But they made me sign a damage waiver for just a generic tow on a flatbed, which is weird. But they were still out there getting the same job done, maybe not to the same quality as other companies. But the looks of the truck don't always matter.
But
because
the
you could.
argument here, G, isn't if they can get the job done. I do believe that they can get the job done. I don't believe you need a flashy truck to get the job done. What I'm
Mhm.
saying, though, is that the customers do, in fact, care about that. That is the argument that is being made here, is that the customers care. You don't care as a consumer? You do not care as a consumer. And let's take towing out of it.
Mhm.
Let's talk restaurants. Let's talk. What do you like? What do you purchase? Go out to a store or to a business and acquire, other than farm animals. Because I mean, then the shittier it is, the probably more productive they are. Seriously, though, what
Well,
is something that you go out and you purchase?
so that's the thing. Like, this is where different mentalities come in. I'm
Mm,
coming from a small town where a lot of things are older, run down,
mm,
and the quality and the service. Like, my mom runs a restaurant.
yes,
That building has been there for 60, 70 years. The
right.
outside doesn't look appealing, but the food is phenomenal. Right? So I've come
But do you think
accustomed,
her
not.
business would? Do you think that business would be more successful if the food was phenomenal and it looked beautiful?
I don't know. I know from the company side, if they were to try to do that, it would put them out of business faster than they're already going out of business,
Mhm.
right? Because they
Right.
just can't afford it,
No,
especially
I
in the
understand.
economy and the location. It's just not in the pocketbook
But
for
you
that.
cannot say that it doesn't have an effect on customers.
I don't know. The reviews speak for
You don't know.
themselves.
You know it. You do know. It's common knowledge, G. If it looks good and it works good, or it looks good and it tastes good, or it does what it's supposed to do and looks good. And we're talking comparable prices, right? Like that company with the rundown trucks were charging the same price that we were charging.
Yeah.
So it's not like it comes down to a dimes to dollars thing, right? Like there's no doubt that if cost is out of play because it's equal in all departments, which
Hmm.
a lot of these guys, like I said, if he's referring to these tows off the 400 are regulated, are set to a certain limit, then
Yeah.
absolutely it does matter. If I see
Hmm.
a guy pulled up in a 92 clapped out F350 with the rear suspension hanging and a fender flare missing off of it, and I got a guy who shows up in a brand new Vulcan 804, 806, maybe not brand new, I'd like about a year or two old because anybody can buy a brand new truck, right? With a qualified operator. And we're putting, I want to be on the same page here. We're comparing apples to apples. I mean, quality of operator identical, pricing identical. We are
Hmm.
just comparing it down to a skate lace tying a toolbox or not, in theory. 100% that is bugging me as a consumer because if this guy's not taking pride in his equipment, if he's not taking pride in his equipment, how do I know he's going to take a pride in my equipment? Right? Me as a consumer, if I'm going to invest money with you and getting a tow from you is investing money with your company, right? To receive a service, I want to make sure that I'm taken care of. And a shoelace skate lace, hockey skate lace is not the way to establish that you are the guy for the job. And if you do believe it is, then you have set the bar so low that you are more of a nuisance than a benefit to the industry.
Honestly, we're putting a lot riding on a singular shoelace, on a toolbox that honestly, if you've tied up a hockey skate lace on your toolbox, that knot is probably done up pretty tightly so you don't go into that
Holy
toolbox.
Jesus.
No, you
Look
probably
at
don't go into that toolbox very often, right? Now, if it was a bungee cord, I'd be like, okay, the latch is broken and he might still have to get into it from time to time. The tied up bootlace makes me feel like there's hardly anything in that bin that he uses. Now, there should be equipment and tools in there that you frequently use enough, but some trucks just aren't as well equipped as others.
that is fair. So going back to these police in inspections,
Yeah.
right? Where this Onatrio truck happened to get busted. I was saying that we recently had them visit our yard to do an inspection on all of our units.
Hmm.
I'm happy to advise that every unit that got checked passed with flying colors.
Yep.
And there's only 2 units that weren't available for this inspection. They've got to go back in. I have zero concerns. But
Mhm.
so in our fleet, we have an 80-ton rotator.
Mhm.
Okay. While they were doing this checklist, The 80-ton rotator was missing a piece of equipment. Would you like to take a guess at what it was? This will go to show the complete lack of understanding that the police have when it comes to the towing industry.
A broom.
Nope. We made sure to put one of those in because it was on the checklist.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm pretty sure if my 80-ton rotator needs a broom, I got other trucks there that'll probably have, but
Yeah.
fair enough. No, not a
Yeah.
broom. Any other guesses?
Shovel. Trash can.
Booster cables.
Ah.
They required that all units have a set of booster cables.
So you're telling me your 80-ton rotator that is specific use, that's never normally on scene on a job alone, requires a set of jumper cables.
It's been on scene on a job alone, but yeah. Requires a pair of booster cables.
Wow.
And the fact that I don't want to shit on the police for this because, I mean, they're not listening anyways, but the fact that they didn't care what we put in. We put in, like, okay, we just grab some booster cables out of the shop like you do in a moment like that and go.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, that's fine. They're like 16 gauge booster cables. I mean, like these
6-foot booster cables that couldn't boost anything with the truck.
Like, I wouldn't boost my lawnmower with these things. They'd probably burn up.
Yeah.
And to them, it's just, okay, well, you checked it off the list. Like, how broken is your system? When, like, what is the point of your inspection if you don't truly have an understanding on how the equipment works?
Yeah.
Right. And it brings me into a really good point. How can you manage and maintain a system without having a full understanding on how it works?
Yeah.
And that brings me to my second episode, or my second point that I want to talk to that's not on our list as usual. We have recently implemented a program, and I want to hear your opinions on it. We have our dispatchers. We are going to start every month. They're going to be required to go on a ride along for about 2-3 hours a month. Because the same way that I will sit here and criticize the police who did this inspection requiring my 80-ton rotator to have a set of booster cables to meet a government requirement that makes zero sense.
Yeah.
How can you expect your dispatchers, right? There's a lot you can do on onboarding, but how can you expect your dispatchers to have an understanding on how your equipment works, or to be able to relay to customers, or be able to have an understanding to be able to set appropriate ETAs, acceptable delays, and all that good stuff if they don't themselves have at least a basic? You're not going to get a general understanding even in 2 to 3 hours a month, but you sure can at least get a basic of a basic. I mean, watching it on TV can only get you so far. And unfortunately, a lot of what you see on TV does not cover light duty towing, which is a big part of our dispatcher's operations. Right? So whenever I have a dispatcher tell a customer, yeah, no problem, I can go get those 5,000 liter fuel tanks for you, and I'll put them on my low boy. You know, my drop deck low boy. Oh, you don't have anything to load them or unload them? No problem. That's a problem.
Yeah.
That is a problem. Why? Because dispatch doesn't have a full understanding on how that actual low boy works, how the front gooseneck disconnects from it, right? They don't have an understanding. They can have an understanding on, oh, it's got a flat tire. We've all been there. We've all seen a flat tire, right?
Yep.
But why are all the studs broken off all of a sudden an issue? These dispatchers aren't mechanics.
No.
For the most part, you know, they could come from a mechanic background and you might get lucky. But for the general companies that are currently out there, being required to hire, you know, office staff that might not have a towing background.
Yep.
How are they going to understand why is this driver taking 15 minutes longer than usual to load a vehicle because the studs are all broken off? I don't even know what a stud is.
Yep.
Or a broken ball.
They called me that in high school.
Why do these guys complain so much when I send them broken ball joints?
Yeah.
Right? Why are they upset whenever it's you can only picture in your head so much on the issues that these people are going to face every day. So It's the same way with the police system, right? It's the same thing. You can't criticize that system and not have a full understanding within your own company.
Yep.
But what do you think about that? What do you think about dispatchers and I'm not expecting them to operate the truck. I'm not expecting them to drive the truck, any of that stuff. All I'm saying is spending a set amount of time per hour, per week, per month, whatever you set out is and deem as required, with dispatchers taking ride-alongs with drivers? Do you think it could help or hurt the relationship between the dynamic between those two departments?
I think it could definitely help. There is some flaws just because, like you said, 3, 4 hours a month isn't going to get you very far very fast, right?
Mhm.
But at the end of the day, beggars can't be choosers, and 4 hours a month is better than no hours a month. And let's be frank, the towing industry doesn't always pay the best to its operators, dispatchers. So you're not getting mechanics coming to apply for a dispatching job because that, if they went to school for it, that's not the field that they're going to be going into.
Agreed.
So 9 times out of 10, when you get a new dispatcher in, they might have the general understanding, they might be good at paperwork, but they're not going to be able to grasp at the full scope of
No, their
all your
background
different
is going to be more of a clerical type of
yeah,
position.
for sure. And that's ideally what you technically need for a dispatcher. Like you need someone who's good with computers, good with dealing with customers, this, that, and the other. But then if you don't do something like this and you don't teach them all these little quirks and ins and outs, you can either get drivers that are trying to teach them in a pissed off manner because they got their eighth tire change for the day,
Mm.
and the dispatcher just doesn't quite understand because money's money. And so then you get a driver saying, "This is my third ball joint call of the week. Why are you sending me all these? Spread out the bad shit. Like, why are you just giving me all the shit?" Which then could put a sour taste in the dispatcher's mouth and cause bad blood in between employees, which is not what you want. So I honestly think sending out some of your dispatchers a couple times a month or at least once a month on decent calls, on different calls, and keeping track of what calls they have gone on and what calls they haven't gone on, because it's no sense of sending out the
Yeah.
same person month after month to do a tire change and a unlock or an unlock.
No,
An
I
unlock?
agree. I think you have to put together some sort of structure, some
Mhm.
sort of checklist for
Yep.
types of scenarios that you would like that dispatcher to see, and
Mhm.
then do your best in that time window that you have to adjust into it. I don't just mean in the yard.
Mhm.
I want these dispatchers to see real world scenarios for two
Yep.
purposes. One, and it's not the same in a yard. You might help them get an understanding of how things work, but it's not the same in the yard. I want them to see the interactions the drivers have with the
Mhm.
customer. I want to see how important it is when they get bad information,
Mhm.
right? The driver's there because another dispatcher is dispatching and gets bad information, and how that affects the driver's process and how he has to.
I wanna see the dispatcher sitting in the passenger seat overhear the conversation between the driver and the customer when the customer's upset at the driver because they sent out the wrong piece of equipment because the dispatcher told them, "Oh, yeah, we'll send out a flatbed.
Well,
You want a
okay.
flatbed."
So the company that I work for has multiple shifts of dispatch, which means that we would not have them dispatch their own calls and then go out on them.
Yeah.
That being said, yes, depending on the size and setup of a company, that may be
Mhm.
required if you wanted to do this,
Mhm.
right? But no, I would. That's what I mean. I want to see those things because I think the dispatch needs to have an understanding.
Mhm.
Whenever, not only that, to see customers lie.
Oh, yeah.
Customers lie all the time. I am just pulled over on the side of the road, turns into 150 feet out into a field. And I know they get that, right? Because drivers will send dispatch photos and go, "What the is this?"
Yeah.
Right? I thought you said he was 5 feet off. But it's one thing to have an interaction with a customer on a phone. It's another thing to have the interaction in person, right?
Mhm.
My dispatchers are my first line, my first interaction with the company. They will make or break that service from the word go,
Mhm.
right? My tow operators are the first interaction face to face with the customer.
Mhm.
And they can blow that call up or make that call a great one from the word go,
Mhm.
right? It is hard to get a call back on track with a bad dispatcher and a good operator,
Yep.
right? Just as it's just as dangerous. Everybody's got their very important cogs in this plan here, right?
Mhm.
In the motion of how this works. So having them both on the same page and having an understanding of each other, not only the difficulties in which they face, but just the day to day on what they actually go through out there, I think can lead to some empathy from your dispatcher.
Yep.
Hopefully not too much because I don't want my dispatcher getting soft, but I want them to understand,
Yep.
right? You know, my my dispatcher's giving a driver shit. because he doesn't want to stay too long past his shift while boogieing out the door 2 seconds after the hour.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Kind of sits there and goes, hey, it's good for the goose, it's good for the gander. So if you can see what they actually go through in a day-to-day, even if it's for 2 to 3 hours a month, I don't think it's going to hurt the relationship between the two. I'm not saying it'll solve the us versus them that exists in dispatchers versus operators. I don't
That's why
think
we
it's
have a shirt on our website that says dispatching. It's like towing, but smarter.
100%, because we absolutely, as much as I have, like, I'm pretty sure I've had episodes where I've shit on dispatchers, right? I've also learned the value of a dispatcher, because I've had good dispatchers and I've had bad dispatchers. And a company who fails to recognize a good dispatcher, a company that we both know and love, right, that fails to recognize a good dispatcher and the importance of having that within the company is whew, off to a troublesome time.
And I think you'll find that, especially if you've gone to different companies, you as drivers will figure out who's a good dispatcher and who's a bad dispatcher. Because I know for some dispatchers in the past, you see drivers going out of their way to help that dispatcher out, whether that's bring them a coffee or just make sure they're doing okay financially, being a shoulder to cry on type thing. And other dispatchers, I'm not saying you're rude to them, but they're just there to do their job, and you're here to do your job, and that's the end of your conversation, right?
You need to have a mix of that. That's like drivers. We've said that from the beginning. You need to have a mix of dispatchers and a mix of drivers, right? I've seen my operators come in and do kinds of like favors for dispatch, and I got no problems with it.
Yeah.
And I have seen dispatchers who will absolutely just bluntly tell somebody, hey, I'm sorry, I didn't realize we were, this was a democracy right now. I thought I was dispatching the calls and you were doing them. Both of those situations have their place.
Yep.
Both of them have their place, because without one, the other is impossible. And, a driver will walk over a dispatcher, or a dispatch will absolutely destroy a driver. It can go two
And with
ways.
that training, that, or at least field time,
Mhm.
when they say, I'm dispatching you this call, and the driver kicks back, oh, well, this truck would do that better. At least hopefully they would have some understanding of why they're actually sending this truck to do that job.
Yeah, see, my problem is I've seen guys too many times do that, where I'm a big believer, okay? If dispatch sends you out in this truck and it is capable, like, it's not even just so much the truck, right? A lot of times is the dispatch will say, oh, well, this guy should do that, right? The drivers will try and manage the dispatcher. I always tell them it's very simple. Go out and do the call. Dispatch sends you the call, go out and do the call. If you truly feel that we are missing an opportunity, let's say, hey, I think that this job should have been with this truck, or da 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 da. Come and have a talk with me, and we'll discuss it. Because if there is an issue, if there is a disconnect, we will solve it. But we will solve it after the call is done. Meaning, you're not just going to go in and a call comes in and a driver goes in and no, you send that to him. This guy's already da da. No. That's what I pay. That's what you pay dispatchers for.
Yep.
Right? Go do the call when the dispatch sends you. If you feel that we're going in the wrong direction with this, I'll gladly have the conversation with you.
Yep.
Do not. Driver's job is not to manage a dispatcher. A dispatcher's job is to manage drivers.
I think that's another issue that we've had in the past, and I'm sure it's an issue elsewhere, is just because the dispatcher gets the 2-week onboarding period, right?
Mhm.
It is so hard to train them for every situation that a lot of times the dispatcher has to go and ask questions to the driver,
Yes.
which then makes the driver feel like maybe they're just not competent enough yet, and
Yes.
I will try to manage them. And that's what sets you down this tumbling road of failure from
Yes.
the get-go.
Yes.
And it's understandable that they're going to have questions and they need to ask someone. And maybe they call up Mr. PlainGuy, but PlainGuy's busy on a wreck managing 5 guys over there. And there's a question about, oh, well, I've got a broken ball joint and
Mhm.
I've got a bed in a
Yeah.
wrecker. Who can they call? The driver. Say, hey, are you capable of doing this? And that's okay. But then it's up to the driver to realize that this isn't a repeating thing.
Yes, 100%. I think there's too many drivers out there that are goddamn sharks in the water. No, it's true though, and I don't mean this in a negative way, but they get they smell the blood, right? A dispatch will make a little bit of a slip up, right? A little bit of an error, and the drivers will start to question them. And once
Mhm.
they start to question them,
Yep.
now they'll question all their decisions.
Mhm.
Oh, guilty, right here.
Yep.
This guy right here in front of your camera that is speaking
Mhm.
to you right now is guilty of doing that exact same thing.
Yep. Same.
I don't think there's an operator out there that can tell me that he hasn't.
Yep.
Right? So, yes, that is a real thing where you sense a little bit of weakness or a little bit of instability in dispatch. And if, especially if you're that A-type personality that we talk about that thrives a lot in the industry, you are going to want to fix it and you are going to want to manage it and you are going to want to control it and you are going to want to. The problem is that if you're also a selfish person,
Yep.
which a lot of A-type personalities can be. Again, this guy right here talking to you right now, this guy
Yep.
is one of those people at times, or has at least been in the past. I'm
Mhm.
working on being a better person,
Good.
right?
Good.
I don't say I'm working well at it. I'm working on it.
Well, at least you're working on it. That's the
Exactly.
main.
It is too easy for them to take control of that and start to manage the dispatch.
Mhm.
And without proper structure and without proper intervention, you can really start to run into an issue where your drivers are controlling your dispatcher, not your dispatcher controlling your drivers. So
Mhm.
keep an eye out, right? See, look in your workplace right now. Think back as you're driving, listening to this, or watching it, in your hot tub at home or wherever it is that you watch us on YouTube and listen to us. Do you have a driver like that in your fleet that is one that will try and take control of a dispatch, right? And if they jump at the sign of weakness, that one time they've been led down the wrong path where
Mhm.
dispatch wasn't sure or dispatch made a mistake, and that driver now questions everything the dispatch does, and you'll see this come in waves and cycles. So I want you to take the time to think about it. If you have, you can comment down below over on the YouTube side. Send us an email at thetowinglife@gmail.com. Send us a message on Facebook at the Towing Life Podcast on Facebook. Head over to towinglife.ca. There is a contact us form. I want to hear about your drivers who try to manage your dispatch, because I know there's people listening right now that have that exact scenario. We are not alone in this. There is
No.
no way that us two going, yeah, me, I did that, are the only people in this industry that listen that have done that. So
Yeah, it's definitely a the industry is just so massive and complex, and yet it's so simple too. At the end of the day, like, what's our job? To tow ship boxes, to take things that are on their side and put them on their wheels. Like, it's a pretty simple concept.
yes.
But once you actually dive right into it, there's thousands of wrong ways and 100 different right ways, and
Yep.
to try to train dispatch on all these things, it's just insane. With that being said, there is so many different ways of doing a certain tow. There's so many different tools that you can use to get the same job done. And I think I've seen like 4 or 5 posts over the last month about race ramps. And in the comment section of every single post, it's, why would you go out and spend $400 on a set of race ramps and find spot in your toolbox when you can just keep a couple of 2x4s or 2x6s, use it for ramping out of ditches to get vehicles over culverts and getting low vehicles onto your bed? And that, like, the block of wood is just such a useful tool for us operators. It can be a jack stand. Like, wood on a truck, you can never go wrong. If you have any extra space in your toolboxes, fill it with wood, and I'm sure you'll use it at some point.
Okay. Before you get into that,
Okay,
okay, we're going to come back to wood. I want you to remember wood.
wood. Okay.
This is a fun fact. Okay.
Yep.
So I was in a training course recently about company culture. And I promise you, this is going to come full circle to wood. Okay.
Okay.
And we were talking about building business cultures and
Hmm.
admitting to your failures and how failures can also be learning opportunities and actually great things.
Okay.
Okay. Did you know there's a drug called sildenafil?
No.
Sildenafil was a drug that was an artificial compound that was originally synthesized and studied to treat hypertension, which is high blood pressure, and angina pectoris, a form of cardiovascular disease. So this drug was designed and put together to help with high blood pressure and chest pains.
And
Now,
it's now
unfortunately,
called Viagra.
you couldn't just let me get around to this, eh?
What, is that it?
Yes. You got to cut that whole segment out now.
No, it's staying in.
No. So, anyways, getting back to this before TowManG happened to absolutely ruin this. This drug did not work as well as it was supposed to at fixing the issues in which it had.
Hmm.
Luckily, while studying this, there happened to be a weird side effect to it. Right? Can you imagine being on that trial study when they found out that this drug, commonly referred to today as Viagra,
No.
was not used or not meant for what it was supposed to be meant for? Right? So if you would have let me come around to tie that into wood, we would have been having a great day. Now,
I'm still having a great day. I don't know about you.
well, apparently the people that were doing this clinical trial also were as well. So that being said, the argument is race ramps or pre-manufactured composite ramps,
Yeah.
plastic, whatever the hell they're made of, versus just a standard wooden. Like, are we just talking, like, first of all, 2x4s, you want something a little bigger.
Yeah,
But are we
2x6
talking
is
like
normally for
two by
ramps.
four built or 2x6 built ramps compared to race ramps? Or are we talking about just you've got a lumber
Either or.
yard in your toolbox?
Either or. A lot of our trucks have at least a 2x6 with a 2x4 screwed in underneath of it to give it some sort of a lip.
Okay, so
And
you
then,
are actually talking about an in-shop made ramp. I have no
yeah,
objections. I
yeah.
do believe that product, because you can build it exactly your way for the
Mhm.
price. I haven't looked at what a price of race ramps actually is.
I think the last time I checked, it was like $300 to $400 for a set. But the last time I
Yeah,
checked,
I mean, shit. I'm looking on Google right now, and they're not cheap.
yeah.
They are, they are not cheap in the slightest.
Mhm.
So comparing that to a set of actual, just regular built in your shop wooden ramps, I mean, there's advantages to them,
Mhm.
right? We're talking about weight,
Yeah.
right? They're obviously going to be a lot lighter and
Yeah.
more maneuverable and I mean, structurally sound. I don't think you're going to get me on an argument that they're more structurally sound than a piece of 2x4. I've
Yeah.
argued some pretty dumb points. But yeah, a set of compact toe 42-inch ramps, you're looking about $400 Canadian.
Yeah.
That's excessive,
Mhm.
right? If you want to get, there's some other ones I'm seeing here for 500. The trailer ramps, flatbed tow ramps, 600. Like, yeah, no, they're not cheap.
And I wouldn't want to shove those down to the ditch to try to get a wheel to come up over top of a culvert
Well,
like I would with blocks of wood.
I think you got to realize that there's a point and purpose for this tool.
Yeah.
You're
But I'm
right.
saying the block of
You're
wood,
right. You're
the
100% right. You are not going to shove these $600 race ramps.
no.
But again, you got to have to understand that these weren't built for that, and they weren't
Mhm.
probably built for that clientele. They are built more for the guys who are doing exotic car transportation.
Mhm.
And in all fairness, just like the shoelace, if you were getting your $100,000 supercar moved, and this guy
Yeah.
does come out with some 2x6s that are screwed together and uneven and split because they didn't pre-drill a hole, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I might have my doubts too.
Mhm.
Right? This goes back to the shoelace thing.
Yeah.
But if that car carrier, who I am paying premium to
Mhm.
haul my vehicle with probably his nice slide back tarped in flatbed,
Oh,
shows
those
up
are
with a
nice.
professional and clean set of race ramps, then again, so there's a market for this. So to say, yeah, I wouldn't want to be throwing these down the ditch. I 100% agree with you,
Mhm.
because they weren't meant for that. They were meant for the classier folks, G.
I'm all for multi-use tools though.
You okay? I agree.
I love my multi-use tools. I love things that can serve different purposes and do different things because let's face it, a lot of trucks don't have the room to store your whole garage worth of tools that you could possibly need out on the road. So if you can find one piece of wood that can solve 20% of your problems that you might have out on the road, you're doing pretty good. Just like if you can find another tool that can solve another 20%, whatever it is, you could go out and get three different tools to solve 7.5% each, But that's just more room that you probably don't have in your toolboxes. It takes up more real estate. And let's let's be honest, outside of your exotic car carriers, like you were saying, race ramps, 100%, I agree. But your 90% of drivers out there on the road that do this every day, that can tow a 2002 Honda Civic and then tow a new Mercedes, you need something that can do everything. And a lot of times, a lot of these trucks only have the two 6-foot toolboxes, not a lot of space, just your standard generic tow truck, flatbed, rollback, whatever you want to call it. You need to be able to condense stuff down into those toolboxes to get the best bang for your buck.
I-
And that's my biggest gripe about these race ramps, because they're big, they're bulky, they don't stack normally very well because they're solid. You normally have to stack them up in the back side of your toolbox, and then if you put anything in front of it, then you got to take everything out to get those race ramps out. And if it's something that you're going to
If
be
it's
doing all the
wooden
time,
constructed ramps, you're gonna run into the same problem.
I know,
They
but
don't
you
just
can.
take up less room. They're the same size, if not bigger. So I mean, you have valid arguments here. You are very
Yeah.
well. You're putting together some very valid arguments for that point,
Mhm.
and I don't disagree with that.
Mhm.
Right? Like I said, there is a purpose for these tools, and it might not apply to you. But
But,
the argument on size in the box, your wooden ramps are no smaller.
yeah, but what I'm saying is size to like real estate taken up in the box
Mhm.
compared to ability to do multiple things,
Right.
right?
What you were saying is that if you wanted three tools to do 20% of the work,
Mhm.
I should hire 3 TowManGs.
No. No, I'm saying if you can hire one tool to do 20% of the work, why would you have 3 tools? Like, I'll do it like
I've
this.
asked
If you
myself that
could
like
only
half
have
of the times.
if you could only have one wrench, would you A, have a 10 millimeter wrench or a crescent wrench that can do lots of things, lots
Let
of
me
different
ask you.
size bolts?
Okay, fair question. I'll play this game.
Yep. Yep.
Depends if I drive a Honda Civic. No, it's a true story though. No, this is actually real. This isn't just a joke. Would I rather have one or an adjustable wrench? It depends on the work that I'm doing.
Yep.
If all I do is turn 10 mil bolts,
Mhm.
100% I would want a 10 mil wrench over an
Yep.
adjustable.
Mhm.
And that's the argument I'm saying for the prices of these tools and everything for this specialty equipment.
Yep.
Is that if all you do is turn 12 mil wrenches or 10 mil wrenches, then absolutely I'd rather have a 10 mil wrench than an adjustable.
But unfortunately, the towing industry, we don't just tow 2002 Honda Civics.
100%. And so
Yep.
don't buy the race ramps.
Yeah,
But you can't argue that they don't have a purpose.
100%.
Okay.
I agree.
As long as we're on the same page with that. Okay.
Yep.
That being said, these poor folks have had to listen to us talk about 10 mil wrenches and race ramps and all the terrible things about our own Natrio trucks.
Mhm.
We didn't get to everything that we want to get to. The good news is we're back again next week to
Yep.
go over it all over again.
Yep.
And to talk about the new issues, because I do have I hate doing these little pump up things because then we don't get to it and then we look kind of stupid when you do the playback. But I do have some things that we definitely want to get to. Ontario is a booming and happening place in the towing industry. Unfortunately, a lot of that is for good reasons, and most of it is for bad reasons.
Yeah.
I shouldn't
Unterrible,
say
as
Ontario.
they
I
say.
should say Onatrio. That is the new name of our province, is Onatrio. So on behalf of myself, my wonderful co-host, Mr. TowManG, don't forget to get your Recovery of the Month calendar and visit us at towinglife.ca/recovery. Get your calendar now before we are sold out. Thank you. From Onatrio, you have yourself a good night. Take care. See you next week.
Toodles.